In this video, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of how to generate messages and record results from flame simulations during scenario editing and during scenario execution. This video is not telling you things that you're absolutely required to do. It's just giving you an overview of the features that are available for flames that we use in our flames models, our component software, and their features that we think would be helpful to you. I'm going to be referring to the developer's guide, which is one of the developer's manuals, development guide, and I'm down in this section here that's titled with the same title of this video, Generating Messages and Recording Results. In the software that you write for Flames, you're free to call any subroutines that you want to generate output. Flames doesn't place any restriction on that. You can send stuff to a database, write stuff out to a flat file in any way that you want. But there are some features in Flames, some facilities in Flames that are particularly convenient, and we're going to talk about those. The first set of features is how you generate textual messages, and these are messages that are intended to be, they're human readable text. It's very simple to do it. You call one of these FMH functions, and it's called, FMH stands for the Flames Message Handler. The arguments to all these functions are all the same, and I'm going to let you read about those arguments and read the details here. I'm not going to take the time to go over that. You'll see that these routines are called frequently in the models that we write. The really nice thing about these FMH routines is that they are aware of the context within which your function call is made, and they will send the message that you generate, the text message that you generate, to the proper destination based on the context. So for example, if you call FMH announce in code that is executing during scenario generation, for example, in a retrieve function or a read function or in a configure, particularly in configure, it will send the message to either a dialog if it's configuring an individual entity, or it'll send it to the forge status window. So it knows how to send that message to the right place. So we highly recommend using this. If you're executing a scenario, it will send messages to the execution output log, which is one of the data recorders in Flames. You can read about the execution output log, or execution output recorder, by clicking on this link right here, and it gives you an overview. If you don't have an execution output recorder created in your scenario, then calls to FMH functions will just be ignored during scenario execution. So you might wonder why you're not seeing the messages, and that'll be why. One of the nice things about the execution output recorder is you can create a recorder you can create multiple instances of that recorder and send the data to multiple places. One common place is to tell the output to be sent to a window. So that's one of the options that you have here. It can be a file or a window. If you set to window, then when you're running a scenario, executing a scenario in Forge, the output will be displayed in the execution output window. In addition to that, you can also tell it to send output to a file, and then your messages will also be logged to a file and be available to you after the scenario has finished executing. So FMH calls, those are used almost without exception. In fact, I don't think there are any exceptions. They're used everywhere in Flames anytime you want to generate a text message. There's another way to get messages out to the user interface in Forge, and that's with this status string. And this is a very special purpose way of displaying information. What it does is it writes out some text that is displayed in the monitor window. So if you're in Forge or in Flash and you have the unit monitor open and you're monitoring a particular unit in the scenario, if that unit, any of the models attached to that unit, could be equipment models, it could be cognition models, if any of those models make a call to this function right here, funit set status, then the information that is sent out or passed into that function will be displayed interactively in this unit monitor window, and it'll show up in this table right here. And you get to specify like a parameter and then some free-form text. Ways that you would use this, you might want to interactively know if an airplane is, how much fuel it has left. So you can monitor the window and you can monitor the unit, pull it up here, and it could give you a real-time reading of how much fuel is left. It might tell you how many missiles are left. It might tell you if it's approaching a certain airport, like it's on its way to a certain airport, whatever it is that you want to be able to see interactively while the scenario is executing in Forge. You can make a call to that function. So you can read about the details of that function on your own. The next set of capability that I'm going to describe is how to record numerical results. And this would be data that is really logging what's really happening inside the scenario. There's a lot of data recorders built into Flames that already record numerical results, and they're just built in. And our models use those, and your models can use those. If in your code you want to use the launch recorder, you would include the right include file that defines the record, and there's other places in the manual that will tell you about that. And then you fill out the record and you call this particular routine right here, frecorder write record. And that's the record ID, and that's the address of the structure that includes or contains the data. And that's it. That will send the data in the proper format to the proper output directory based upon the settings that you've defined in your recorder settings in your scenario. So there are, again, as I pointed out just a second ago, there's a bunch of predefined recorders already set up for Flames, and they all have data structures, and you can use those and write out to them. So that's the one way to get data is use one of our predefined recorders. And again, you can access those from your own code, but another way to do it is to use the same mechanism but define your own data structure. So that's how I want to conclude this video, is by telling you a little bit about this. If you want to define your own record, your own data recorder, you would define a Flames record. And that is described in the video on our extended argument passing mechanisms. And we talk about Flames records. And Flames record is just an arbitrary data structure where all the fields are contiguous in memory, and you have that data structure registered with Flames. So Flames knows about that data structure, so it knows how to do I/O with that structure. So you can take any data structure that you want that you've defined as a Flames record, you can register that record with the Flames recorder system. And you would do that by calling this function right here. And this is a little excerpt for how you would do it. You would call frecorder register record. You pass in the record ID, which is the record ID that you create when you define the record. And again, that's talked about in another video. And then you specify a character string that you want to use to identify your recorder. So once you do that, that's all you have to do. You can then in your code call frecorder write record right here, and you can pass in your record ID and an instance of your record, and it will write out the contents of that record to the specified data recorder file. So this is super powerful. You can record any data structure that you want, and so you can put those in your code and just it's very flexible, very powerful. When you register a record that you want to use for data recording with this particular function call right here, that name that you specify here will show up in the Flames event recorder. So this is underneath the data recording settings, and if you pick the class of event recorder, you're going to be able to specify the format that you want to use for writing your data, and then you'll pick the record name. Well, your name will show up here, whatever you want to call it, Tom, Dick, Harry, whatever, it will show up here. And then you can use this to turn on your recorder. If you don't turn on the recorder, then any calls to write that record will just be ignored. But if you turn it on, you get to specify what file, you get to specify the format, and then when the scenario is running, your data will get saved in that file. And as I mentioned before, there are several different formats that are specified that are available. So we have an internal proprietary format called FRC, and then there's also DBF format and a CSV format. CSV is, of course, text. Both of these are binary. So that's the way you could record custom data. If you're doing an analysis simulation, you're definitely going to want to take advantage of this feature. So that's an introduction to built-in ways in Flames to record output or to generate output, either textual output or recorded output. I hope that you'll find this helpful as you try to generate data from your models. Thank you for watching, and thank you for using Flames.